No more reasons not to shine. Yeah. Free in the kingdom, to be me. Free in the world, and all will see that the God in me is powerful indeed, and the power to get wealth is working in me. I am called to be a curse breaker, Abraham's seed. Poverty must bow to the anointing and free me indeed. No more ways to feed tonight, no more reasons not to shine. Free in the kingdom, to be me. Free in the world, and all will see that the God in me is powerful indeed.
Thanks for joining me on today, and welcome to the Kingdom Wealth Warriors channel, where we equip kingdom-minded believers with spiritual truths to walk in divine authority, wisdom, and wealth. My name is Deb Howard, your Abundant Life Coach. I am so excited to be here on today, and I want to start our discussion as we continue our series. We're on part 2 of the divine disruption, and I think that this series is really going to continue to be a blessing. Hopefully you were able to view our first episode, because today we're going to take it one step further. Have you ever felt in your spirit, but couldn't quite put a finger on it? Felt like a stirring in your spirit, an unrest. Something's off, right? The grace you once felt for a place or a project or even an assignment or even a person is lifting. And all you can sense is God is shifting something. In today's episode, we're unpacking how to recognize when the cloud has moved. Because in the wilderness, if you remember, for the Israelites, it wasn't just about survival. It was about movement. And guess what? It's still about movement. The Israelites, if you recall, only moved when the cloud moved. And when it stayed still, they stayed still. But how do we know when it's time to move and when it's time to stay? Spiritual maturity isn't just about hearing God's voice. That's one part. It's also about discerning His movement. God leads in patterns. He's not always predictable. In Numbers chapter 9, verses 17 through 23, it talks about whenever the cloud lifted, the Israelites set out. Wherever the cloud settled, they camped. The cloud didn't follow their schedule. It followed heaven's purpose. So I want us to think about for a moment. Do we recognize when the cloud has moved? I.e., when the glory, when the presence has lifted in a place or on an assignment? Do we recognize when things have shifted? Now, I do think we recognize when things have shifted. I do. But sometimes I think we may not know how to interpret that information and how to move. We have to understand that when the cloud lifts, when the glory of God lifts off of your assignment, right? It kind of reminds me in our previous episode, we talked about one of the ways that we can know is when resources start drying up, right? When we've exhausted a place. And I think here we're getting some of those signs too, to know when the glory has lifted. Now in the wilderness, when the cloud moved, believe it or not, some stayed only a day, but others camped for a year. It wasn't about comfort, it was about obedience. You're not behind. You're not stuck. You just may be camped in a season where God hasn't told you to move yet, or you're still parked in a place where He's already lifted the grace. So this is what we want to sharpen our discernment on. We don't want to stay anywhere where the glory has lifted, where His presence has shifted or moved. We want to be discerning enough that not only do we know something's changed, but we know it's time for us also to get in movement. So how do we discern a shift? Well, we just talked about the grace feels different, right? The weight, the glory, His presence feels different. It's harder to maintain what once flowed easily. You feel a growing restlessness, right? Not anxiety, but anticipation. Like there's more. I'm here, but I feel like, there's more I should be doing. Old systems start breaking down, whether it's financial, relational, emotional, whatever was there, right? It starts breaking down. You know, I can remember a particular situation in my life when I was in a place and the glory had lifted for me. And I think that's an important distinction. It's not to say that the place itself is not righteous or that God isn't in that place. But for me and the assignment on my life, the cloud had moved. And I think we have to recognize that based on what we're called to do, even a good place may not be our place. Even a God place may not be our place. I've been at ministries that were amazing. Awesome word, spirit filled. But the cloud moved for me. And it became difficult for me, right, to assimilate into the culture that was there. What was once easy, even from a relationship perspective, became very tense. So I want you, and that's what we're talking about. That's why we're talking about these divine disruptions, so that we can recognize not that the person is evil or the ministry or the business or the customer, whatever it is, not that they're evil, but that there is a path that you have to take. And when the glory or when the grace has lifted for you, then we need to understand that movement, right? It's time to move. All right. You receive recurring confirmations. I know we've talked about, signs and how God, really deals with His people. So when we keep getting confirmation after confirmation, many times, especially on online ministries in the chats, you'll see people say confirmation, right? Or even in church, people will say, oh, that's a confirmation for me. A prophetic word, oh, that's a confirmation. Okay, you have confirmation. Are you moving? Are you acting upon the thing that God is confirming in your life? All right, that's His cloud moving for you. All right. Peace increases when you let go, and not and it seems to decrease when you hold on. And the example that I gave you about myself being in a place that the glory for me had lifted, the cloud had moved. It became very hard for me to have peace in that place, even though I had peace for a long time. But all of a sudden, there was stress, there was anxiety, there was tension. It was time for me to move. All right. So I want you to really think about some of these things and begin to identify if applicable. Are you in a place? Are you on an assignment? Are you at a job? Right? So many areas in our life, sometimes the glory has moved in that area. And we know something's changed, but we are not always in tune enough to take action. Listen, The Father rarely yells. Let's just get that out there. I know we want to hear him just yell out to us, stop, move, don't go there. I won't say he never yells, but he rarely yells. Typically, it's a whisper. Typically, it's a whisper in peace, in the silence. It's quiet. So if your peace is lifting in a situation or a place or even in a relationship, then it's time to pay attention. Sometimes God delays so we don't detour. So just like with Israel, if they moved without the cloud, they risk destruction. So ask yourself, am I moving out of faith or frustration? Very key here. So we want to move with the cloud, but we also want to make sure that our actions are based on faith, are based on what God is saying to us, and not just frustration. Now, you know, and I know that we can get frustrated with a person, a situation, assignment. We can get frustrated. And it may not be that God is calling us out of that yet, right? I've been in some situations where I know God called me into, or that he assigned me to complete. And frustration arose, for sure. But that doesn't mean that his cloud moved. That doesn't mean he was telling me to move. I am a human being with emotions. And sometimes, even in a place of grace, I can get frustrated. I don't know about you, but I can. So in that case, it's very important for me to discern when my emotions, right, are in play and when God is speaking. And that's important for you to distinguish. You know, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence, managing your emotions, being in tune with yourself and recognizing who you are as a person. And so it's in this situation, before you say, oh, the cloud is moved, make sure that you're not speaking out of frustration. Make sure that you're speaking from a place of peace and obedience. Because I want to discern the difference between spiritual transition and a personal impulse. That's the whole word right there. That one little head acting up. Right? I want to discern the difference between a spiritual transition and personal impulse. Because remember, personal impulse will occur definitely from frustration, right? That's an emotional impulse, right? Not based on really truth or facts or even a word from God. This is how I'm feeling today. How many of y'all say that? I'm feeling some kind of way. I'm feeling like I don't want to go to work. I'm feeling, okay. You get it. So you need to make sure, because I want to make sure we have a good foundation as we're talking about following the cloud. That we really understand that following the cloud and recognizing when the glory has lifted, this is spiritual transition. Right? It's not about getting mad at everybody and running off. It's not about how all these people getting on your nerves. Right? And definitely that can be a sign that the peace, right, may not be there, but that is not the only sign. Right? So we have to be discerning. Right? We talked about when the grace feels different. We talked about that holy restlessness, not feeling anxious about it, but just anticipation for the more. You know, old systems breaking down, receiving confirmations, right? And when peace increases when you let go. So I want you to really, even with all of those signs, be prayerful and in tune with Holy Spirit so that you do not make the mistake of moving out on your own. All right. Now, some signs that you're resisting this shift could be you keep trying to revive a dying assignment. You know when something's not growing. If it's not growing, it's dying. Okay. So you keep trying to perform CPR on something that it's already dead. This is a sign that you are resisting what God is doing. You're emotionally exhausted, but won't rest. Listen, I know many of you have had assignments in your life like this, where you're just emotionally just tired. But you won't rest. You keep going. You keep doing, you keep going back to the place, right? Or going back to the partner, right? The spouse, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, even though you're just emotionally exhausted. But instead of resting and being at peace in what God is doing in the separation, we keep pushing in a direction, right? Of trying to maintain something that's already dead. You keep saying maybe next month. Maybe later, maybe next year. I'm not ready to move. I'm not ready to break up with this person. I'm not ready to leave that ministry. Maybe give me some time. Let me think about it. This could be resistance to the shift that God is doing. And you've grown afraid to launch because of what it might cost. God has given you something to do, to start, to launch out in, to be the pioneer in. It costs too much. If I had more, if I knew more people, if I had more money, if I had whatever, right? We're resisting the shift. The cloud is moving. It has lifted. It's time for you to follow what God is calling you to do, but we are looking for excuses. I've been there. I have been there. So I want you to know that delay is costing you more than your launch. The price you're paying to stay where you are, the price you're paying to put off what God has called you to do. Bruh, sis, is costing you more than what you think the actual assignment is costing. It's costing you way more. It's costing you more spiritually, emotionally. It's costing you more, even with your relationship with the Father. So just like spiritual financial shifts also require obedience. Is he calling you to release something? And let's talk about the release. Because sometimes when we think about, is he calling you to release something, we might be thinking like big things. But listen, financially, is he calling you to release some of those subscriptions, especially those recurring subscriptions? How about that? Is he calling you to release Netflix, Hulu, Disney? Sometimes the release is not just about money. Listen, that'll preach right there. Sometimes releasing a subscription, a lifestyle addiction, right? Whether it's Starbucks or something else, it's not just about money. Maybe you can't afford it. Maybe that $20 is not a big deal for you. But maybe God is doing something else. Remember, we're talking about following the cloud. So I think sometimes when it comes to money, we don't think God speaks to us in that way. We tie everything to what we can afford, when in reality, maybe he wants you to release that Netflix subscription because I need you to focus more on me, says the Lord. How about that? That he wants you to spend some extra time in some other areas. And he knows, as you know, that these things can be a distraction. So is he calling you to release something? And let's not just think of it as, what we can afford, but really listening to the Spirit. All these podcasts, all these live episodes that we've been doing, these broadcasts have really been about you hearing from God and being aware of how he's speaking to you in all the many ways that he speaks. And so when it comes to finances, I really want you to think about when he's speaking to you about a certain thing, that it may not be about money. It may not. It may be about your time. It may be about your attention. It may be about you positioning yourself so that you can really go forth in what he wants you to do. Is it time to explore new income streams or sharpen your skills for a new season? We're in a new season, whether you perceive it or not. We are in a new season. So, what is the Spirit speaking to you about? How are you going to continue or even increase your income? And what is He speaking to you about as far as operating in what is becoming a new economy? Maybe it's not about earning more, but maybe it's about managing more. Maybe it's about really understanding how your money works and how you can make it work. Listen, money will work, right? And it will work hard at getting away from you unless you manage it. Oh my gosh. Proverbs 10:5 tells us, he who gathers in summer is a wise son. Meaning, when opportunity and instruction align, it's time to act. When opportunity and instruction align, it's time to act. So let's get to our affirmations for today. And let's say this. Repeat this with me. I move when the cloud moves. You better say that to yourself all day today. I move when the cloud moves. I'm not going to resist the shift. I move when the cloud moves. I will not cling to what grace has left. Listen, when the grace is gone from a situation, a place, an assignment, a job, a person, whatever, I will not cling to it. I will not cling to what grace has left. I'm led by the Spirit, not by fear or frustration. I am led by the Spirit of God. I don't make emotional, impulsive decisions. Come on now. I don't operate by fear. I don't make decisions by fear. I don't operate in frustration. I don't make decisions out of frustration. I am led by the Spirit. And I discern the difference between discomfort and divine direction. Listen, I need to talk. I'm going to say that to I discern the difference. I know the difference between discomfort and divine direction. I know the difference between when I just am uncomfortable in a situation and when the cloud is moved. Oh my goodness. Listen, I know this was good to me today. God doesn't move on your timeline. Let's talk about what we talked about today. God doesn't move on your timeline, but He always moves with purpose. Discerning a divine shift requires us to be sensitive to the Spirit, to be sensitive to the Spirit, to hear even with our eyes if we have to, right? Through all the means that we talked about, confirmations, right? To be quiet, to know that His voice might come in a whisper, and to surrender. To be willing and able and ready to surrender. Surrender your motives, surrender your desires. You don't have to figure everything out. You just have to follow the cloud. You don't have to know the whole plan. I know we want to know the whole plan. I know we want to know, God, where you taking me? What's going on here? I know. But you don't have to know everything. You just have to follow the cloud. So listen, this week I want you to take 10 minutes in quiet. We've done this exercise before, but I think, with today's broadcast, I think that God really wants to do some things in some of your lives. And you may be stuck and not even realize it. The cloud may have already lifted and you're still stuck in that old place. So I want you to take 10 minutes this week, just 10 minutes. No music, no TV, no noise, no holding the baby or the grandbaby. Complete silence. I want you to find that spot. Hopefully you have a sacred place, in your home. You should have, I encourage you to have a sacred place. It doesn't have to be a big place, right? Whether it's a prayer closet, whether it's a corner with a chair. I want you, if you haven't already done this, I want you to designate a space in your home that's sacred. Heck, if it's in the bathroom, it's in the bathroom. But have a place that's sacred, that's your place where you can sit in peace. I want you to take 10 minutes and just sit before the Lord. Can you do that? Just sit in quiet before the Lord. Ask Him, have you moved? And am I still, camped somewhere where I shouldn't be? Am I still camped in a situation, in a place, in a relationship, even in a mindset? Am I camped somewhere where I shouldn't be? And wait. Let Spirit speak to you. And don't forget to write down what you hear, right? Don't forget to take some way to either write it down or record it so that you don't forget. Listen, thanks for joining me on today. I feel like this has been a very rich episode. I hope it blessed you on today. I want to remind you that we have an event coming up at the end of the year, October 11th, 2025, the Kingdom Wealth Warriors Summit. You can go to debhowardonline.com and get information about that and other events that I have coming up. I want to just encourage you. Listen, the cloud is still leading. God is still speaking. Whether it's time to pitch a tent or pack it up, listen, we have to trust Him. Divine disruption is not about destruction. Remember, we talked about that. It's about construction. And today it's about direction. Listen, thanks again for joining me. You know what I'm going to say. Go have your most abundant day. I will see you soon.